I want to, before we go to that next section, just look at what happens if you don't have these virtues. If you are what is traditionally called a vicious person. So a vicious person is someone who is not living the cardinal virtues. So they're imprudent, they are unjust, they are not courageous, so they're cowardice, they're cowards, and they are intemperate. Well, a vicious person is not going to be able to lead well. I'm sorry. Because a vicious person is not going to be able to conceive of the good because they're not prudent, and they're not going to be able to strive after the good because they are not just, they are not brave, and they are not temperate. We don't have to look too far back in history to find examples of vicious people being bad leaders. So it is an unfortunate fact of life that often it can happen. Vicious people end up in leadership positions. That doesn't make them leaders, though. And we can see that vicious people in leadership positions have caused some of the largest disasters of human history, period. Think of Hitler, think of Stalin. A vicious person in a leadership position cannot lead. Which, remember the definition of leadership. Leadership is the process of influencing people through providing purpose, direction, and motivation to accomplish a goal and to improve the organization. A vicious person is not going to be able to do this. So first off, a vicious person is not going to respectfully and positively influence. They're not going to rely on commitment and on compliance. Instead, they're going to rely on fear and threats and negative and toxic cultures. Okay, 2, a vicious person is not going to give the purpose. They're not going to explain the overarching why, typically because the why is not a good reason. So they're not going to explain enough to their subordinates why they're doing various things. Instead, they're just going to demand things. So they'll replace purpose with just demands. They might give clear directions, and unfortunately, some of the worse and vicious people can be very, very exacting and precise when it comes to giving instructions for working their havoc. So we'll leave that one to the side. And sometimes, unfortunately, they actually will be able to motivate people to do what they want them to do. But whatever goal that they're searching for typically is a vicious goal, and they do not improve the overall organization. They typically bring them down to their vicious state. So a vicious person is not going to be able to be a true leader. They will be able to manipulate and force people to get their way and to do their bidding and things like this. So this is why it's important to be a virtuous person. And once again, you don't have to be the Hitler or the Stalins of the world. Even take someone like Elizabeth Holmes that we just talked about. This is not a mass murderer by any stretch of imaginations, but this is someone who, fortunately, did not live the virtue of prudence or justice well. And because of that, she was not able to lead her company well. Her company literally fell apart, and she is now, there are criminal charges against her. So this is why, as a bare minimum, you need the virtues to be a good leader. But the virtues are not just the end of the game, right? That's not all she wrote when it comes to leadership. So I want to go to the last section of this talk, which is what are some of the things that you can do to improve as a leader.